So originally when I was pulling for this character, I was like, okay, I'm not going to get her because I'm more worried about getting Zora. He is way better. I went to pity on Zora and I did like 5 multis on this banner. And then recently I was like, why not toss one more multi at this banner? And I was lucky enough to get Vanessa. So today I am going to be doing a build guide for this character. I got her built up very, very quickly. I just pulled her last night. So I am excited to be doing this build guide. I am excited to test her out. I'm excited to do a showcase on her. So if you guys would like to see that showcase, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button so you guys can get updated in the future. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into this. So starting with her passive, her unique passive is that at the start of battle, if all allies have the Sense attribute, grants Thread of Fate to an ally defender mage. That works out really well because Thread of Fate grants immortality for 1 turn if HP is equal to or lower than 30%, meaning Marileona on a mono green team will now basically have the same passive as Black Asta, where she will get immortality just like Black Asta gets immortality from Witch Queen. So that is very, very good. And also very annoying because Marileona is so hard to kill and her burns and everything that can proc. It's really insanely good. Like, don't underestimate how good that unique passive is right there. Her skill 1 is called Red Thread Whip. It grants an SP +2 buff to the ally with the highest all attack. That's really nice because if you're running this Vanessa with other green characters who do similar things, like the new seasonal Mimosa, who can give a bunch of SP, or the Charlotte, who can give a bunch of SP, right? Plus this SP, you can be giving back a special skill to a character within 1 turn. It's insane how much potential this skill 1 has right here, along with other characters. That's really, really good. Her skill 2 is called Thread of Protection, and this has a 80% chance. It's 60% if you don't have it upgraded at all. If you upgrade it all the way, it's 100%. But right now with where I have it, it's an 80% chance to grant an ally a Blessing of Protection buff for 2 turns. That is really nice because Blessing of Protection is going to grant 8% of max HP as HP recovery when damage resist is triggered against an enemy attack, and then grants all allies a total defense buff for 1 turn. So because Blessing of Protection gives HP as HP recovery based on damage resist, I do recommend the substats you go for on her gear would probably be HP and damage resist to give her as much of that Blessing of Protection as possible, and maybe a little bit of defense as well. But with the way you're building her, you're already going to be building her for defense, so you shouldn't have to worry as much about that. And then you can see I do have this upgraded. I also have the special skill upgraded. I would say between the skill 2 and the special skill, you can upgrade like either or first. It doesn't really matter. I'd say these 2 are your top priority. And then after that, I'd probably say your skill 1 and then your combo skill for upgrade priority. And then her special skill is called Red Thread of Fate. It grants an ally invulnerability for 2 turns. You get that no matter what without upgrading it, okay? But upgrading the skill gives you a higher chance to remove 2 debuffs from an ally, which is nice to be able to remove debuffs, of course, okay? So removing debuffs is good. Also, getting Blessing and Protection is good. I think the Blessing and Protection personally is probably a little bit better. So I personally would probably go skill 2 for upgrading that all the way to level 5 first. Then your special skill, then skill 1, then combo skill. And last but not least, her combined attacks after inflicting immortality removal on an enemy. Okay, so that's going to be nice for getting rid of Black Asta's immortality, especially if you take on a mono red team, making it now possible for mono green to take on mono red a little bit easier. Okay, so I do think that's pretty good, and I think that works out fairly nicely. Now, in terms of skill pages, what skill pages should you be equipping to her? First and foremost, I would say her skill page because it gives the total defense on your skill 2. Without that total defense, she's not going to be as tanky. Your team's not going to be as tanky. So that's going to help out quite a bit to have that total defense. I do think for that reason alone, this is one of the best skill pages you can equip on her. And then the other effect, if a Blessing of Protection buff is present on self, grants 20% reduced damage taken to self. That is really, really good because you want her to have survivability, right? Because chances are your Marileona is not going to be easily killable, so who are they going to try to kill to get rid of the invulnerability and stuff like that? Well, they're going to be targeting Vanessa. So you want to give Vanessa as much damage reduction as possible, and so that makes this like the best possible skill page you could put on her. You could also put a defensive skill page like this one on her, or there are a couple of other support option skill pages that we'll talk about. So the first alternative option would be the Captain's Condemnation with William, and upon using skill 2, in addition to the Blessing and Protection, you could also grant the ally with the lowest HP recovery equal to 6 to 10% of their maximum HP. So now you're getting healing from Blessing of Protection whenever damage resist is triggered, as well as HP recovery from using your skill 2. So that could work out fairly nicely. You could also run Insatiable Quest with Sally. So upon using skill 2, applies 10% increased all attack to the ally with the highest attack for 2 turns. So that could work as well when you use your skill 2 with this Vanessa. And my last recommendation would be the Oath of Protection, the SR version of this skill page. And this applies a 20 to 40% increased damage resist to the ally with the lowest HP for 1 turn upon using skill 2. So I think that could also be pretty good, especially when coupling that with Blessing of Protection. Now moving on to gear, there are a couple of different ways you can build this character. I want to say that first and foremost because I am doing an interesting build, mainly because I'm able to transcend some of these pieces. Like this piece right here, I was able to transcend, and I just had a bunch of these pieces, and I'm like, I need to get rid of these. I need to free up my inventory a little bit, and Vanessa is a good character to do this on, okay? But so this is the first build right here. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to go for 4 defense pieces. You want to make her as tanky as possible, and these 3 pieces are going to be magic attack pieces. The gear set you're going to go for, you're going to go for a gold defense set, 2-piece defense set. So you have 1 piece here, 1 piece here. I do need to switch out the SSRs for LRs later. You are going to go for a half gold mobility set, which is going to speed up your team. And then you're going to go for the clown set, the jester set. And so what this is going to do is it's going to inflict 8% reduced damage dealt on the enemy with the highest all attack for 1 turn when using skill 1. Now this is good because you're going to be using Vanessa's skill 1 to give SP back to your team, and then at the same time when you use that skill 1, you're also going to be reducing the enemy's damage dealt, which is pretty good. So that's fairly decent overall. Your other option besides the jester set would be the porcelain set, which I have right here. I do have it equipped to William because it grants 20% reduced damage taken if HP is equal to or above 90%. This would work really well on Vanessa, but I think in my case, I want to keep it on William, so that's why I'm running the Jester set. So in terms of like new sets, I would either be running the Jester set or I would be running the Porcelain set on Vanessa. Now, the other way you could build this character is you could go for a full mobility set and a half defense set. Okay, that would give her more speed if you need more speed. Okay, she does start with 110 speed, but ideally you want her kind of going before the enemy team, before the rest of your team. So you want to give her as much speed as possible. And so for that reason, you could build her for a full mobility set and a half defense set. Or you could build her the other way around for a full defense set if you really wanted to get that 40% increased defense and 8% fortify. You could go for a full defense set and a half mobility set. So those are kind of the 4 ways, I suppose, that you could build this character gear-wise. Now for substats, like I mentioned before, I would go for HP, I would go for damage resist, and I would also go for defense in terms of substats. I would also go for the percentage ones as well. Like these aren't the best because they're not in percentages. Percentage substats are going to be better than these flat increase substats. So you do want to re-roll those to try and get percentage substats. Now let's talk about enhancement. Is Vanessa worth enhancing? Well, I think she is good without enhancement. And maybe that's just copium because I didn't pull more than 1 copy of her. But I do think it is at the same time definitely worth getting her to 2 dupes if you can. So what this is going to do, at the start of a turn, grants a 50% increased mobility buff and a 10% increased speed buff to an allied defender mage for 1 turn. That's going to help your defender go faster, have more turns and stuff like that. And that is going to be really good, especially with Leona. So the speed and mobility is very, very good. And then if you get her to 5 dupes, you get that saved stuff. And then upon dying, she's going to grant all allies an SP plus 8 buff, which is like, I don't feel like that's necessary, right? So getting her to 5 dupes, not necessary. Getting her to 2 dupes, I would say not necessary once again, but it very beneficial, right? Definitely worth doing if you can. So if you can get her to 2 dupes, get her to 2 dupes. Otherwise, without any dupes, I do think she is still a very decent character for a mono green team in general, or for any defensive team that you're going to go with. Now, in terms of talents, I do have her skill tree mostly done. I have to finish 1 more slot here. The 1 slot I need, I just kind of activated these randomly, but what I would go for, let's start with the defense tree because this is one that really matters, is I would go for Iron Will. This is going to give her debuff immunity for 1 turn when her HP is equal to or lower than 35%. That's going to help her use her skills without getting debuffed. And then I would also go for defense. Like I mentioned before, you're building her largely for defense to help keep her alive. And then for the support tree, I would go for the accuracy and penetration, but more importantly, I would go for the debuff immunity for 1 turn when she successfully resists damage, because you're going to be building her for damage reduction. She's going to have that blessing and protection and all that stuff. So debuff immunity on this character is big. That is like the best way to build her. And then in terms of attack, the attack tree just, it doesn't really matter. I would go for probably just the flat damage increase and the crit damage increase. This is a supporter type character, right, though, so damage isn't going to matter all that much. I went for accuracy as well on my stone, but the stone in that particular tree doesn't matter. For this tree, I would go for defense. If you can get a better stone, obviously go for the better stone, but defense is what I would go for. And then for this slot, I would go for a speed stone as well, like a speed 2 or a speed 1 or a speed 3. Whatever speed stone you have, I'd put a speed stone into that spot for the support tree. And that is pretty much it for her build. That just leaves us with talking about the teams that she can fit on. So last but not least, I have 3 different teams here that I want to show you guys that are potentially going to work with this new Vanessa. So one of those teams would be this team right here with Fauna. So the idea is to use Vanessa to give Fauna that invulnerability. That way she can't die, because as we know, Mereoleona characters on defense will oftentimes go after Fauna. And when they go after Fauna, they just nuke her. So this is a way to help keep Fauna alive so that Fauna actually does get her chance to nuke. But once again, you want your Vanessa to end up being faster than the enemy team so that she can give your Fauna the invulnerability before the enemy team attacks and ends up killing Fauna. So this is why you would need Vanessa built with a fairly decent speed. And at the same time, though, you don't want to neglect her defense and damage reduction. So just keep that in mind when you are building this character. But this could work out fairly well. And I like this team because it's like you have a backup if Fauna doesn't end up nuking the enemy team all the way, and your backup is Mereoleona, and Mereoleona is going to be pretty tanky with these other 2 characters here. And so even if like Fauna dies somehow, then you have Mereoleona here to back you up and get the burns on the enemy and stuff like that. So it forces them to choose between these 2 characters and who they want to kill, and it's a hard team to like choose and prioritize who you're going to kill if you're going against this type of team. So this team works out pretty well. Another option you could run would be a team like this. This is not a mono green team, but this is a freaking annoying team, because basically by the time you're going to put invulnerability on Fuegoleon, and then by the time Fuegoleon gets his turn, Mereoleona will have procced all of her burns on the enemy, and then Fuegoleon will be able to just nuke the enemy. And now a lot of times what you run into with this type of team is Fuegoleon getting silenced by like Red Uno or something like that. It doesn't matter now anymore because the invulnerability will keep him safe for like 2 turns until he gets his chance to eventually ult. So this team is very, very annoying. You have damage reduction here, you have the defense here, you have the blessing and protection with Vanessa as well. So tanky, immortality, invulnerability, just super annoying, and good nuke damage. So if you have this Fuegoleon built at all, or you don't, I do recommend building this Fuegoleon because he works really well with Destiny Vanessa or Threat of Fate Vanessa, whatever you want to call her. She's been called both. And this team is pretty dang decent. And last but not least, a mono green team that is kind of near and dear to my heart just because it's kind of, in my opinion, it's a little bit cheesy and it's fun to play. But the idea behind this team is you are going to be giving SPs with Mimosa, you're going to be giving SP points with Vanessa, and you're going to be giving SP points with Charlotte. You also have blessing and protection with Vanessa, you have damage reduction with her, and you have healing and just insane utility with Mimosa. And then Mereoleona is just going to be able to burn the enemy over time and then also do some big nuking damage if you have her built enough. So this team is just incredibly annoying, and I think very toxic, but also a lot of fun to play. So that is pretty much it for Vanessa's build guide, guys. If you guys did enjoy the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.